Well, hello everyone. It's a sad time because the 2018 NFL Draft has come and gone. 3 days of action-packed excitement. And I've got to say, the 2018 NFL Draft was a lot of fun to watch all 3 days. You had intriguing stories all throughout. You had big splashy moves. I enjoyed the viewing experience immensely. It was one of the more fun drafts that I've watched, honestly, in quite some time. But it is about time to close the chapter on this 2018 NFL Draft with one final NFL Draft Q&A for this year. And of course, it's not just one part, it's going to be a two-part video, so lots of questions and try to get through most of them, and hopefully I'm able to. Thanks you guys again for all of your participation in this. Let's go ahead and get started. Memolosa asked, the most surprising undrafted free agent this year. Was it Tony Brown? Was it Josh Adams? You know, even though I had a high grade on Josh Adams being a late third round talent to me, I could see he was a taller, higher cut type of back. I wasn't that surprised ultimately when he went undrafted. I really wasn't. Tony Brown, at the combine, you even got kind of the sense that he was kind of difficult, is the best way I could put it. I was a little surprised that he went undrafted because this was a corner with great speed. I thought, nickel dime corner, somebody's going to take a chance on him, maybe play him on special teams. So it makes you wonder what the off-the-field report, what the character report might have been. My biggest surprises in terms of undrafted free agents would be Holton Hill from Texas and Desmond Harrison from West Georgia. I know these guys both came with off-the-field baggage, but what was so much worse about their off-the-field baggage compared to, let's say, an Antonio Callaway who got drafted by the Browns in the 4th round? You talk about Desmond Harrison, who has elite-level athleticism for an offensive tackle. You'd have thought somebody in one of the 7 rounds would have taken a chance on him. Same thing with Holton Hill. Good size-speed combination at the corner position. At some point in time, with as important as the corner position is, you'd have thought somebody would have taken a chance in those 7 rounds. So it speaks to concerns about whether or not he'll be able to pass drug tests or something else. There's something there. But I was really surprised by those 2 guys specifically. Riel Oba asked, how soon does Lamar Jackson take over from Joe Flacco? Probably for Ravens fans, not soon enough. If they get out of the playoff contention sometime in 2018, that's your time. If Flacco gets hurt, obviously, which I wouldn't anticipate, but you never know. Otherwise, you might be looking 2019, mid-2019, even 2020 before that happens. But patience, someday it will. Cardona Diego, how likely is it that Marcus Allen ends up being better than Terrell Edmunds? That's a great question. Terrell Edmunds, the Steelers took 28th overall. Then they were able to get Marcus Allen for Penn State in round 5. Edmunds has exciting athletic upside, but he's not a great football player, and I don't know if he's going to be. Makes me wonder if they'd almost want to bulk him up a little bit and move him to inside linebacker at some point, or play him in some type of Dayon Buchanan type of role. I think Terrell Edmunds will get more chances and more opportunities, so I will still lean to he ends up having the better career. Alex Saida, thoughts on the Bears giving up a future second-round pick and your defensive projection for them in 2018? I'm perfectly fine with giving up the second-round pick next year because of the player they got and where they got him. You needed to get Anthony Miller. They got Anthony Miller. I'm giggly tits about that. Now, if they took a player that I wasn't particularly high on, or they took a player that I didn't particularly like, it probably honestly is a different story in terms of the perspective and the way I feel about it. But I'll put it this way, is when you look at a draft, and if you feel like you could get 3 impact players out of a draft, you've had a hell of a class. All this talk about all these picks and everything else, if you get 3 guys to come in and make a big contribution, then you feel really good. And if the Bears get big contributions out of Roquan Smith, James Daniels, and Anthony Miller, they've had a great draft class. And if they get anything else from anywhere else, then it's just gravy. So you'll look ahead to 2019. They may feel like they're a possible playoff team. They may feel like they could trade back in round 1 when that time comes. They may feel like based off of the depth of the draft and where it's going to be stronger, particularly in the trenches, offensive and defensive line, that they might be able, like I said, to peel back and get additional picks maybe in round 3 or round 4. So at this point in time, it's deal with that reality when next year comes around. Yes, it sucks to give up future premium picks like that, similar to dealing up from 3 to 2 for Trubisky when they didn't have to, and they gave up a third-round pick this year. But ultimately, you look at it, they were able to come away with 2 second-round picks without that third-round pick. So let's see how this whole thing plays out. Oskilan, which playoff team is most improved from the draft? Which playoff team is most improved from the draft? It is an excellent, excellent question. Trying to think here off the top of my head. I might say New England getting Isaiah Wynn and Sony Michel. To get those 2 guys in round 1, if Michel's knee holds up, you've got a different type of back for Belichick. You've got a real potential impact player, and I think Isaiah Wynn is a year 1 starter at left tackle. For a team like that went to the Super Bowl, to get 2 guys in the first round that could contribute like that, I feel like they improved the most. Brandon Roman, how long do you think the Jets need to sit Sam Darnold for? You go into camp, you make it a full-on competition, and if Darnold is ready or close to ready, then he must be the guy week 1. And how ironic is it, as somebody pointed out to me on Twitter, that the Suck for Sam campaign, they got out of position for pick 1 and still ended up with Sam Darnold after trading up from 6 to 3. That is freaking funny. They don't need to sit him for any length of time if they feel like he gives them as good a chance as anybody to win games. That's the answer. Danny Common, what does drafting Kyle Lauletta mean for Davis Webb? I don't know inherently if it means a whole lot for Davis Webb one way or another, other than he's got competition to be Eli's backup. When you look at Davis Webb, he was drafted by a previous regime, so maybe new general manager Dave Gettleman isn't as much of a fan. But you also look at last year, Davis Webb was drafted in the 3rd round. This year, Lauletta was drafted in the 4th round. It may not mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. In another year, if the Giants' season doesn't go well, they're going to be looking for a new quarterback anyway, so it doesn't really matter with either one of these guys. John DeCarlo, what one of the QBs do you think will start the soonest? That is a great question. Excellent question. Which one of these QBs will start the soonest? I think everybody agrees, barring injury, Lamar Jackson is a no. I think a lot of us probably believe that Hugh Jackson is going to stubbornly dig in his heels with Tyrod Taylor initially. So that might be a no. How foolish that is. If I had to venture a guess right now, Josh Allen's got to beat out who? A.J. McCarron? Sam Darnold's got to beat out who? Maybe Josh McCown and Teddy Bridgewater? Rosen's going to beat out Sam Bradford. Bradford's got to make it through a preseason healthy. If you had to gamble on which of the quarterbacks would be most likely to start day 1, it would be Darnold, Allen, and Rosen, probably in that particular order. Steve Lidner, thoughts on the Jets draft? The Suck for Sam campaign, they trade up from 6 to 3, and they get Sam Darnold, who they had no reason to believe was actually going to be there. I mean, that was a big win for them. I would have liked to have seen them draft some offensive line help, but I thought they got good players in other spots as well. But you'll have to wait and see what I thought of their draft as a whole. Casey Morris, thoughts on Austin Prohl? I didn't have him on my big board, but late round 7, he's got a little bit of something. He's worth giving a shot, maybe storing on your practice squad for a year and seeing if he can adjust to the speed of the NFL game. And should Josh Allen start day 1? Similar thing with Sam Darnold. If Josh Allen looks equivalent to A.J. McCarron at least, then he must start day 1. He must. It's not forcing it. If you feel like there's not much of a difference or they're pretty much the same, then you always go with the rookie. You always, because the upside is inherently larger. William asks, thoughts on the Bears passing on edge rushers until round 6? Some Bears fans probably would have rather have had Harold Landry over James Daniels. I think long term, James Daniels is probably a better fit for the Bears than Harold Landry was. In terms of the way other things fell, they didn't have a 3rd round pick. They got rid of one of their 4th rounders to move up to the 2nd round to get Anthony Miller. And it was kind of the way the board fell. It wasn't a great draft in terms of depth for edge rushers. They might be looking at Kwiatkowski and thinking about playing him some outside as an edge rusher. They might be thinking about bringing somebody back in like a Willie Young or a Lamar Houston. It's just kind of the way the draft fell for them, is what I think. Mac Nuroff, did the Raiders salvage their draft with day 3? I don't know if you could say you could salvage questionable day 1 and 2 with a day 3, but it certainly doesn't hurt them. It helped them. I thought they had a good day 3, but I don't know if it overcomes the first 2 days of the draft. Brian Simons, which team that wasn't a contender did the most to become one afterwards? Now, when you're saying contender, are you saying a Super Bowl contender or a playoff contender? For this purpose, I will go with playoff contender. I look at the Green Bay Packers being able to get Jair Alexander and Joshua Jackson. They have fixed their secondary now. That most certainly is not going to hurt them. I look at my Chicago Bears. I don't feel like it's a homer pick to say getting Roquan Smith, James Daniels, and Anthony Miller makes that team a whole lot better and definitely pushes the needle combined with what they've done in the offseason to being a potential playoff team. The challenge is that they're in a beast of a division, the NFC North, and the NFC is clearly the superior conference. Those would be a couple of teams that I could think of that helped themselves, just trying to instantly answer the question. Sam Walker, based on how the board fell, what would you have done as Bears general manager? Roquan or Tremaine Edmonds at 8. I personally may have done Tremaine Edmonds at 8. That said, I'm not about to knock Roquan Smith because, like I said, I thought he was a stud too. Just personal preference, looking at higher upside. But for what the Bears were looking for, Roquan may have ended up being the better fit for them. James Daniels at 39. Probably would have been the pick at that point for me, personally. And then I would have been scrambling like hell to trade up into round 2 to get Anthony Miller. So there's not a whole lot of divergence between myself and Ryan Pace this time around. I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's scary. Davidson Crooks, what grade do you give the Titans for their selections? Don't know yet. Stay tuned. Dave Garcia, biggest winner and biggest loser of the draft. I didn't really quantify biggest winner and biggest loser, but I gave you some of the biggest winners and some of the biggest losers and my biggest winners and losers of the draft videos, so check that out on this channel. I think I did like 4 or 5 teams on each side of the spectrum. Joseph Kenny, is arm strength for a quarterback in a draft entirely overhyped? It's an interesting, worthwhile discussion. Now, look, you can't have a total and complete noodle arm because at some point in time, teams will be able to game plan and adjust accordingly when they realize you can't hit the deep out or you can't throw the ball accurately, consistently over 15 yards down the field. So you've got to have some form of functional arm strength. You absolutely must. You can't have a noodle arm. Now, is decision-making, field vision, pocket presence, accuracy, are those all important things too? They absolutely are. And I think it depends on the prospect or the player in terms of how those things really matter. Cam Newton is not somebody that throws for an incredibly high accuracy, but he has a rocket for an arm. His team takes more chances down the field because of that. How much is his accuracy not helped by the lack of receiving talent around him? I mean, so there are a bunch of different factors. Just pure arm strength alone in and of itself being the only reason to draft a guy incredibly high, yes, it's very overhyped. Is it automatically overhyped? No, not really. AFC Bungles closes out this Q&A by asking, are you doing team-by-team draft evaluation videos this year? I see I've had a couple of questions already asking for grades on teams and stuff. So I tell you what, in the past I've just done division-by-division grades. If you want me to do team-by-team grading for the 2018 NFL Draft, here is your chance. Now's your time to make it known. Share that in the comments of this video. Go to Twitter and tweet at me that you want to see team-by-team recaps. If I get a big enough, large enough response to indicate that there is a demand to do so, I will crank them out over the next week or week and a half. That's my commitment to you if the response I judge to be big enough. So if you want it, here's your chance to make it happen. All 32 teams, grades on everybody's draft. You know what you got to do. Thanks for watching part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.